The fate of the Northumbrian king, St. Oswald's, leads to one of the more creepy stories of Bamborough Castle. Oswald was determined to kill off a wave of pagan worship and ritual by restoring Christianity to the confused, drunk, and too sexed up Northumbrian tribes. He was helped in this by dozens of monks who landed in Cumbria and travelled across Britain with Oswald's help, setting up a monastery on Lindisfarne, Holy Island. Northumbria lived in peace under Oswald until Penda, the pagan king of Mercia, murdered him at Mazerfelth. Perhaps it was the fact that a deeply religious king had been put to the sword by a pagan warlord that sparked the fierce legends. The terrifying tales began when Penda returned Oswald's body to Bamborough in pieces. His head and hand were embalmed. The rest was buried in sacred ground. Then, strange things began happening. When in the mid-700s, Oswald's head disappeared. Some say it was stolen, others suggest it had been taken by the angels because he was such a holy man. As if cursed, the fortunes of Bamborough went into rapid decline. Viking raiders raped, pillaged and murdered the people of the town, and many were forced to live further inland. Even religious figures began to steal their own silver and gold crosses and crucifixes. In the time of William the Conqueror, Bamborough Castle became a Norman stronghold. Yet another British fortress to protect our new rulers from their new slaves. And it was during this unsavoury time that one so-called monk crept into the chapel where St. Oswald's hand remained as a sacred relic. He hid it on his person and fled. And it's said that the monk was later found strangled some days later. The locals swore it was Oswald's own hand that had choked the life out of him. The fortunes of Bamborough continued to seem cursed with bad luck. Robert of Mowbray was trapped by William Rufus at Bamborough late in the 10th century. In the 16th century, the rich Forster family owned Bamborough, only to go bankrupt. In later years, the castle and associated lands were bought by the Bishop of Durham, Nathaniel Crewe, who subsequently became Lord Crewe. The hotel, the Lord Crewe Arms in Blanchland, still bears his name, and that suffers countless hauntings. Lord Crewe would die without ever having the child that he so deeply desired, and after his death, the castle fell into disrepair. The fortunes of Bamborough seemed to change as soon as Oswald was made a saint. Almost at once, the curse of Oswald's hand was brushed away. The very first Lord Armstrong bought Bamborough Castle, restoring it to its present glory. The curse may be gone, but many visitors have suffered an unpleasant shock. Harry Reid's a local fisherman. He was reeling in his nets just off Bamborough when he saw a human hand in them. In shock, he dropped the net back into the water, losing his catch and the hand. He didn't know anything about St. Oswald, so it seemed best to leave him happy in his ignorance. He said he had not reported it to the police in case they thought he was crazy. When a school party visited the castle in 1963, one of the girls had to be rushed to hospital after having a screaming fit. On reaching hospital in a teacher's car, she'd calmed down. The teachers had all seen the children holding each other's hands so that none would get lost. The girl told doctors, "I was holding Susan's hand, but when I looked back, Susan wasn't there. Just a hand with no one on the end of it." The doctors and the teachers both put it down to her imagination. And during the making of Roman Polanski's Macbeth, starring John Finch and Francesca Annis, two extras dressed as soldiers had a shock. Roger and Brian, two lads from Bedlington, they both swore they saw a human hand crawling across the sand while they took a break. They thought at first it must be some kind of electronic gadget being used by the special effects department. Both had watched a few horror films when hands had done this before, and they presumed it was a practical joke. Both commented how clever it was, until they realized there was no one else about. And finally, David Hobb was a taxi driver. And one night he drove a fare from Alnwick to Bamborough, a fare well worth taking, worth a lot of money. Halfway through the journey, he looked in his rearview mirror and he saw the woman sitting in the back seat, and beside her, climbing across the back of her seat, was a human hand. He shouted to her, "What's that?" She looked around, she saw the hand and started screaming. The taxi crashed, went off the road and hit a small farm wall. They both swear they saw that hand.